And the dean, he's been with the ministry 22, 23 years or so. He was there when I was in middle school. That's the way it worked. That's not true. It's not true. I like to say that, but it's not true. Mike and I actually met each other about 30 years ago. We went to church together. And so never, you want to make sure you kind of leave places in good terms, because you never know how the Lord's going to bring you back to a place. So we've known the Morgans for a long, long time, and grateful. Now we get to serve together at Florida Baptist Financial Services. So what I've got some content, but I really want this to be, something that you find beneficial and helpful. As President Clower said, and I definitely would echo, you may think, well, I'm not in a position where I have a lot to steward. I'm not making massive financial decisions. I'm not handing out checks. And trust me, you're going to turn around a half of a turn, and you're going to be there. And number two, when you start building in these ideas and principles now, can I just tell you, it'll never be easier to get this kind of incorporated into your life. And I'm talking about the personal side and just how we handle money and finances. Life only gets faster and more complex as you get going. So when you get these things going early, and I'm going to show you actually one example that might just floor you about the time value of money and the significance of that. And so they say the best time to start investing was yesterday, and the second best time is today. So I don't know how we're advancing. Are you going to hit the clicker? Am I hitting the clicker?
I can do it.
Where is it? Is it right here? I can do it. I don't mind.
No, that's not a clicker. You have to.
Yeah, no problem. We can do that. So let me just go ahead and build this screen out, and you can. I've already given you a pad of paper, so you can take notes. So here's just some, in no particular order, just some biblical thoughts. Because here's one of the dangers that I think that we make in I'll just say church world, but as believers, we tend to think like there's this sacred and this secular dichotomy. Like we talk about Jesus and salvation and lordship and missions, and we have our whole kind of vocabulary and idea of things, and then we talk about money like it's some kind of a secular, non-Christian-y thing. And what I would tell you is the Bible, hopefully I made that point this morning if you were in chapel, I often ask people, wouldn't it be great if Jesus were your financial advisor?
Yeah.
Yes. And can I tell you, he is. Because he's given us over 2,350 verses in the Bible. If we'll just do what he's already told us in the witness of Scripture. And so what are some of the things? I didn't put the Bible verses, but I'm telling you, every one of these principles is got Bible verses tied to it. So here's the thing. We're not called to be prosperous. We're not called to in fact, Proverbs 11:28 is one of our kind of theme verses, says those who trust in their riches will fail, but the righteous will thrive like a green leaf. And if you look at our logos, that's where the green leaf comes from. Our call is to be righteous, meaning be faithful. Incorporate biblical wisdom into all that you do, and guess what? God will take care of it. Another way it's said in the Sermon on the Mount is, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. And what is the rest of that verse? All these things will be added unto you. Like life will take care, it will be sorted out. It will put Christ first, seek him first, and that includes our finances as well. So kind of integrating that and having a holistic view of life that includes our finances is really important. I said this morning, but this is where I think America is really off track here, because we've turned money into the thing to chase after in our culture. And, I'm a product of, I was sitting where you're sitting in the mid-'80s. Okay, and I know that was like 1,000 years ago, but in the Reagan administration. But
good year.
Yeah. But I really, there was a time in my life where I really was just pursuing success and like Jesus was in my life. I mean, I wasn't like an atheist or anything. Like I was born again, but I wasn't really pursuing. My heart wasn't set on the things of the Lord. I just trying to want to get a job, want to get rich, want to make money, that sort of thing. And if you're not careful, you'll make money your God. And the Bible even says that you can't serve two masters. You're going to choose one. Which one are you choosing? So just go ahead and settle that now. Don't wait to me like you're like 28 trying to figure out, okay, am I going to serve Jesus or am I going to chase money? And so, I mean, you're here at a Christian university, so you've already made a big step in the right direction. But just, like I said in chapel, money's a horrible master, but it's a wonderful servant. When I tell my money to go somewhere, I just put my money, not my money, but the money of our organization in the hands of President Clark. That money went, didn't it? It didn't fuss. It didn't give me, it didn't talk back. It didn't complain. It just went, and I bet by about 8 minutes from now, it'll be in his account here at the university, right? We'll take a picture of that thing. We can just mobile deposit that thing now. But you want to put yourself in a position where you're telling money to do things, not where money's telling you to do things. And so, and we'll talk about how to get there in a minute. Jesus said, put your money somewhere and guess where you're going to find your heart. I'll give you an example. My daughter's at University of Central Florida in Orlando, and a lot of my money is going there. So now you'll find all kind of University of Central Florida, paraphernalia in my life and that sort of thing. I'm thinking a lot more about UCF than UCF. Where you put your money, guess what? In other words, it doesn't say where your heart is, your money will follow. Right. You lead with your money. Put your money somewhere, Jesus said. And soon you turn around and you'll find out that's where your passion, that's where your emphasis, that's what you'll be looking for. So put your money where, in godly things, eternal things. And then, like I said earlier, this is a really good time of life for you to start building, habits that we're going to talk about, and just kind of incorporate those, even in micro decisions. I'm kind of on a little bit of a health kick right now, where I'm trying to, lose weight, be healthy. I'm in that stage of life where I can be old or I can be unhealthy, but I can't be both. And so, I've got to go make some choices. And what I'm learning is it really comes down to micro decisions. It comes down to, what am I going to have for lunch? Am I going to get exercise in today? What am I going to have for dinner? Just managing all those things. So same thing with our financial habits. And then, really kind of ask yourself, what are you chasing? If everything you're chasing were to come true in the next 5 or 10 years, what would happen? Ask yourself that question. And of course, that's your career, your relationship goals, but your financial goals as well. So what is it? Where is the Lord kind of setting your heart and your sights so that you begin to kind of pursue that? As President Clover said, you're going to turn around twice, and you're going to be right there in the middle of it. So, any other things you want to add to that? Mike's got a lot.
This is a great age and stage to be really building these habits in. And we've got to talk to Garrett. If you take the book of Proverbs, which some of you probably have studied many times before, 31 chapters, right? If you take it in, but you apply it, right? The key is the applying it. You'll get a master's degree in finance. Mm-hmm. And that wisdom will carry you all throughout your life, both in personal financial decisions, business decisions, ministry decisions. And many, many, many years ago, that I chased rich, okay? And because I grew up in need. So I chased rich. But I always remembered, didn't God have something to say about money and finances? All I knew was to tithe as a child, as a kid growing up in the church. Still tithed and gave and earned and worked. But you really had to learn and seek. No, he has a lot to say about money. 2,300 plus scriptures say about money. But then you wonder, just as you may now, this was written how many years ago? Now we know it to be alive and well today, right? But when it comes to money, how can it be alive and well today? They didn't have credit cards. They didn't have 401ks and 403bs and all. Did they? No, right? So then I found this verse in Haggai. I could preach a little bit. Haggai was written 700 BC, right? But I found the people of, when I was growing up in the mid-'80s, I found the people 700 BC, and guess what? It's still the people today in America and other places. So Love it when the Lord says, consider your ways, right? We should do what when he says that? Verse 5, chapter 1, verse 5, consider your ways. You've sown much and bring in little. Anybody have more month than money? Right? It's alive and well back then as it is today, when you have more month than money to pay for that. You eat, but you never have enough, right? We're never satisfied. We want more. We're told we need more, right? I'm an advertising minor. I know how to advertise to where you need this, right? You don't, by the way. You don't need it. So you drink and never have enough. You're never full. We always want to consume more, right? You clothe yourselves, but you're not warm. And he who earns wages puts it into a bag with holes. Where did my money go? Yesterday, I'm on campus with your CFO. It was tax day. He's a CPA, I'm a CFP. I had to get my extension in, Monday before I drove over here, right? Tax day usually where you got to fill it all out, and you have to pull your W-2s out, and your 1099s out, and you find out how much you earned, and then you're like, where did it all go? Well, that was the people back here too. So it applies today. His word applies today. His principles apply today. And if you spend less than you earn and you do it over a long period of time, it works out well. Okay? But you got to be disciplined.
So speaking of that, we go under the name of Stewardship Simplified, and the irreducible minimal thing we could say about how to win at money, how to be faithful, how to be over your money and not your money over you, is this top section right here. 3 things: give generously, save regularly, and spend wisely. That's it. I'm telling you, that really is it. It really does come down to those 3 things. And if you do those 3 things, and I would say even in that order, because you've got to start with giving. And you say, I've got 4 nickels. Well, give one of them away. Learn the habit and the joy and the rhythm of giving. And I say that some of you grew up in homes where that was talked about and modeled, and you had that example and you had that kind of life emphasis. Many people today are not growing up in that kind of a household, and so it kind of comes to the church to say this is what it means to live a life that is generous, be open-handed with resources, whatever that looks like, for you, and how the Lord prompts you, as we're talking about untying things this morning. So just, living a generous life, I said it this morning, you'll never outgive God. Here's the thing, just like moments like that where we get to make a donation, we get to make a gift, guess what? We keep moving money out of our organization. Guess what the Lord keeps doing? He turns around and gives us more. And then we try to plow out some more, and then guess what? He shovels in some more. And here's the thing. We keep shoveling it out, and he keeps shoveling it in, and he's got a bigger shovel.
He does.
And the more generous we've been, even I'm just speaking as an organization, as a ministry, the Lord has been faithful to just bless us with more and more opportunity. So I'm just a believer that that's true, that passage I read in Luke this morning. And then Mike's already kind of touched on this, but the real secret sauce in savings is do it before you even see it. Just do it automatically. And of course, now with your devices, it can just come out of your account. You say, well, I've only got $8. Well, put 2 of them away. Always save. I'm going to show you an example of that here in a minute, of how powerful that is, particularly at your age.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, what we would give to be your age again, knowing what we know now.
Yeah, we knew then what we know now.
If we knew that, yeah, because the time, should the Lord tarry, and it'd be okay with me if he didn't, but if the Lord tarries, and you have a long, full life, and you get to live out lives in the ways that we've been able to see it, and see your kids and hopefully your grandkids, you're going to be really glad that you did some things in your 20s that really benefited you in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond. And so it's a great opportunity for you. And then just, this is the one you've got to get a hold of really quick in American culture, because I don't know, you guys know probably better than I do how many marketing messages hit you every day, primarily through these things, but just, out in culture, you can't drive up the road, you can't turn on the radio, you can't watch TV, you can't open up your device without some sort of a marketing message saying, you need this. This is something that you're lacking something. You've got to bring this into your life. That you never get over that, by the way. But you can get a little bit more disciplined over it, and you get where you're not spending, the average American home, unfortunately, spends 106% of their monthly income. Now, you don't have to be a math major to figure out where's that other 6% coming from. It's coming from debt. And so our country, our federal government, is spending about $2 trillion a year more than what they're taking in. So we take in about $4 trillion in revenue, and we spend about $6 trillion, most of that in entitlements, but not all of it. Well, and American families are kind of doing the same thing, not trillions, but dollars every month. And so you've got to be at a point where you're living on less than what you're earning. And then there's a margin there for generosity and for savings. The other piece is these big things come, folks. They really do come, and there's these big moments where, really where I'm at right now is, college is almost done, and we have a 24 and a 20-year-old daughter. Guess what's coming up in my life? There's going to be some weddings, and there's going to be hopefully some grandkids and some things like that. So there's always going to be these kind of events that come, and it calls for another, just a season of saving and being ready again. Back to the book of Proverbs. Mike, anything else on this?
No.
Okay.
Those first three, you apply those now, and you carry those through and be faithful. And hey, if you mess up, get right back on it. But 10, 10, 80, right?
Right.
Give 10, save 10, and you have 80% to spend.
Exactly.
But I would tell you this, after my many years of doing this, both personally and ministerially and professionally, if you don't give, those other things will not fall in place.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
If you do not stick to giving and giving over and above, but be faithful, and you don't have to, I'll give when I'm out of debt. Well, no, you need to give now.
Yeah.
You'll get out of debt.
That's right.
So.
Let me address this real quick. It's a little bit controversial, but because not everybody believes this, but it's okay. You can be wrong. It's fine. No. You have the opportunity, if you are in vocational ministry, you're an ordained pastor, to opt out for moral reasons. You can opt out of Social Security. We encourage people not to do that, okay? Consider it, make your own choice. We would say Guidestone also makes that same recommendation. And here's why. If you do it, you have to be super disciplined in those top three things and make sure that you are putting aside those monies that would go to Social Security, because what happens as a self-employed person, as an ordained pastor you are responsible for your Social Security withholding and what you pay into it. And it ends up being about 15%, I think, is what it comes down to of your pay.
7.5.
Yeah, 7.5. So you could take that 15% and put it into, an index fund or some kind of an investment over the long haul. Most people I know have not done that when they get to be into their 60s, 70s, when they're getting to be in retirement age. And I can't tell you, because I stopped counting, the number of pastors who've come into my office in their 70s or beyond just weeping because they haven't set money aside. Their church hasn't been very generous to them. They're not ready for retirement, and they've opted out of Social Security, and they have absolutely nothing. And this becomes a real big dilemma in their life and all kinds of downstream problems. And so that's just a little of an aside. It's really not a financial decision. If you're opting out, the really only valid legal way to do that is if you have a moral. So if you opt out of Social Security, you're also saying you have a moral problem with any kind of government assistance. So just know what you're doing there. I know a lot of people trying to get back in, which is almost impossible. It's very hard once you get out. It's not like it's not a revolving door. Once you get out, you're kind of out. And so you can't really get back in unless you have to do some really big gymnastics. And so just our counsel is not to do that. All right, we won't touch base on in depth, but you might want to jot these down. Dave Ramsey, I think I got these from Art Rayner, other people who've published Crown Ministries. They always kind of have a path, and they're very similar. So this isn't the only one of those, but I like this one. And it's just, hey, where do I start? Like, if I want to practice those three things, you can't do everything at once. So how would I begin to start putting some of these practices and disciplines into my life? As we said, start giving. Yeah, thank you. Start giving. Just go ahead and make that part of your life and your habit. That's biblical. That's just the Bible teaches that, and just be a giver. Just let that be the heart set. Putting a little bit of money, kind of emergency fund. Here's the thing in life. It says it in James, right? You're either coming out of a trial, you're going into a trial, or you're in a trial, right? Bless you. My wife and I, guess what? Our refrigerator just broke about a week ago. Okay, there's $1,400 we did. So you want to have this $1,500. There's something magical about $1,500. A washer, a dryer, a major appliance. You have something happening. You got to fix your car. These things are regular. They come up. It's part of life. So try to have a little money set aside. If you get into a situation where you have a 401k, or if you're in the church world, a 403b, which is a retirement plan, and there is employer matching, please take advantage of employer matching. So if your employer says, hey, for every 3% or 5% that you put into this plan, we'll match that. You put in $3, we'll put in $3 up to a certain amount. To not take advantage of that is literally leaving money on the table that could be yours. So, and in a time of life when you really would benefit from having those dollars compounding for you for a long time. So max out your 401k, meaning whatever's offered in terms of matching or what they'll let you set aside. Eventually, you'd like to be at a place where about 15% of your income, including employer matching, is being set aside. If you can get to that point, that's just kind of a rule of thumb. More is even better, but if you can get to that point, superb. Pay off all your debt except your mortgage. So credit cards, car loans, it's hard to do. Okay, I get it. That's why it's like step 4. Then start to put aside emergency monies from like 3 to 6 months. So what would it look like if I were to lose my income, something were to happen to me, and all of my bills still needed to be paid, but I didn't have any income for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Try to set those monies aside. Then put 15% into retirement. I already said that. And then save for college or pay off your mortgage, college meaning college for your children, and be ready for that because it's coming. And then, of course, kind of end where you started. Just start everything beyond. So the question becomes at a certain point, not how much should I give, but how much should I keep? Like, Lord, it's all yours. I'm just going to give it away. I need to have this to pay my bills and live on, but everything else can just go right into the kingdom. And it's just a wonderful way to try to get to that point. You want to add anything to that?
There's a theology of savings all throughout Scripture, but there's a fine line going from saving to hoarding. And you don't really know when you step across that line until later on.
Yeah.
But just have a plan, have a guideline, and have some goals around all savings.
Okay. I mentioned this earlier. Here's just an example of what it could look like. If you were to start at 16, and again, none of us I don't think are 16 in this room, but if you had started at 16 and you put $2,000 into we'd say an index, but a market fund. It's a fund that kind of mirrors the stock market. And you placed the next year, when you were 17, you put an additional $2,000. Left that first $2,000 in, let it ride, put the second $2,000 in, and then when you were 18, you put a third $2,000. So how much have you put in? This is math quiz time. $6,000, right? This is really tough math here. So you put in $6,000 into the math, and then guess what you did after that? You should say beyond that, but this is just to prove the point of the power of compounding interest and compounding growth over the long period of time in the equities market. This is real numbers for the last 50 years. Now this data is a little bit dated, but over a 50-year time span, if you had just put 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, and did nothing else, now you should do more, but if you did nothing else, that money, by the time you turn 65, would be just under $600,000. Now, if that doesn't convince you that you should put money, now you should be putting money in all along here,
Yep.
but to get into something where you can put some monies aside, and a really good way to do it is in a Roth IRA. And we won't double click too much on that, but what the beauty of a Roth IRA is it's growing, tax deferred, but then it's also literally tax free because you take the money out. Other IRAs and things can grow in a tax deferred way, but you're going to pay taxes when you take the money out. In a Roth, you're not. So that's a really good way to do it. Anyhow, just you see this as a very common illustration because it's so powerful to say, and what's it really telling us the truth of? A little bit of money over a long period of time equals a lot of money. My girls get tired of hearing me say that.
It's actually decisions that you make today have a truly long-term impact. If you look at it in the other way, if you spent that $2,000.
They say, just another illustration, they say if a plane is leaving San Diego and let's say it's going to go towards Atlanta, if it just changes 3 degrees on its compass, it ends up in New York. This is what this does. This is where you end up somewhere very different because you just did a little bit, but it took over a long period of time. That little bit makes a big difference.
The average household in the United States at 65 is probably $112,000 of value of net worth.
Yeah. All right. A little bit about retirement, and then we'll see what other things y'all want to talk about. This is more of a ministry, kind of speaking to pastors, but over 50% of pastors believe they have not saved adequately for retirement. And I just say that to say, please hear now. You don't want to be at a point. And let me say, too, some of you may not be on the pastor track, but you may be in finance committees and treasurers and other leaders in a Baptist church that have some sort of say over compensation. And make sure that the staff, Scripture says that those who lead well are worthy of double honor, that the workman's worth the wages. And let's make sure we're compensating our pastors well. But part of that compensation is not just their paycheck, it's what are they putting towards retirement. And who you're really benefiting there is that pastor's wife and their family. So make sure that you're having them think through that. The average pastor starts thinking about retirement at 40. Don't wait till you're 40, because remember the chart I just showed you? You lose all of that runway if you wait halfway down the chart. And then say, well, I can't start putting 15% aside. Okay, can you put $10? Can you put 20? Can you just do 1%? So just start. Whatever you can start doing, build those habits in, start setting some money aside. The sooner you do it, the more powerful that's going to be. So, this whole talk in one sentence is basically this: give generously, save regularly, and spend wisely or appropriately. That really is the secret sauce. Give generously, save regularly, and spend appropriately. Now, I just have a little bit more, and this is... This has more to do, a little bit of what I was just saying a minute ago. Some of you now or soon will be in a situation where not only are you managing your household finances, but you're in a position of managing or giving leadership to a church, a nonprofit, a school, or something of that nature. And here's just some really good governance and leadership counsel. And I can tell you, having talked to a lot of people in not only church boards, but also nonprofits over the years, how many miss this and to their detriment. So just a couple of real solid things. Have a budget. And here's just a word about a budget, whether you're talking about your personal finances or in a church or in ministry. A budget is a ministry spending plan. In fact, I don't even use the B word typically because people don't like that. There's kind of a negative connotation with budget. So I'll just say, hey, call it a ministry spending plan. It's what we believe the Lord's calling us to spend and how we're called to spend it. So here's this is extra. But a budget is a goal. It gives you something to shoot for, right? It says, hey, over the next season of time, this is what we hope will happen. So a budget is a goal. A budget is a guide. It helps you know if you're on track or not, right? So, we're ahead of budget, we're behind budget. It just gives you something to measure against, a benchmark to say January, February, March, April, how are we doing? It's a goal, it's a guide, and it's a guess. Because here's the thing, we don't know what the future holds. There could be wonderful things that can happen. There can be challenging things that'll happen. So it's a goal, it's a guide, it's a guess. But here's the thing: a budget or a ministry spending plan is not a God. So let God be God. Give God room within your budget to bless, to challenge, to do whatever. Something might come up mid-year, and if God's truly in it, don't go, well, it's not in the budget, we can't do it. Aren't you glad Joseph didn't say that? Aren't you glad Daniel didn't? Aren't you glad, how many times does God come down and interrupt our plans and says, here's where we're going, here's what we're doing. So be ready to untie things as you can. So have a budget driven by strategy. Don't let your vision be driven by budget. Let the budget be driven by the vision. Have a real board of directors. And when I say real budget or a real board, what I mean is they have teeth. I've seen ministries that just put a financial document together around a budget or a ministry spending plan, and they have no hope of ever achieving that. It's not even real. It's we have to have one, so here it is. No, have a real one that you can help manage in terms of accountability. Same thing with a board. Don't just have people on a committee or a board who aren't sold out, invested, and will ask hard questions, particularly if you're on staff or you're in a position of responsibility. You want people who will do their job as a board. Have regularly published financial reports, whatever that looks like, monthly or quarterly, certainly more than annually, or at least annually, but have regular financial reports, and hopefully some that are provided or at least reviewed by outside accounting firm, not just your internal staff. So have regular financial reports being offered. We could do a whole seminar on this. In fact, I just did a whole seminar on this next one last Saturday, and Dr. Jumper was there over in Clay County. But practice dual control, practice really good internal controls, meaning the person who counts the money is not the person who spends the money. And if you have checks, have two people sign the checks. The person who reconciles the bank statement is not the one who's making deposits into the bank accounts, okay? So that's what we mean by dual control, separation of duties. And then retention, that's just kind of an accounting thing, but have board meeting minutes. When you have documents, you need to keep those documents a certain number of years. And the IRS is now being very particular about how long you keep those documents and you retain those documents. So anyhow, I know that's a little extra, but some of you are now or will be soon in positions of leadership and authority over churches and other nonprofits, and that's basic 101 stuff. You may or may not be surprised, but there's a lot of people who do not practice this in my experience.